Hi, Natasha. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Natasha Saunders. I am a mum of three. I'm married to my best friend, and I'm also a survivor of 8 years of domestic abuse. I've spent the past 9 months campaigning for the Naked Threat, which was an amendment to the domestic abuse bill, which was to outlaw threats to share intimate images in England and Wales.
So, yeah, thank you for joining us. And I want to get straight into this. Could you explain more on the naked threat?
So the Naked Threat campaign was born out of the concept that threats to share, obviously we know the revenge porn was that the law was passed, and actually sharing any intimate videos, photos, files was against the law, but there was a loophole there that threatening to share those images wasn't illegal. When it happened to me, when I left my ex-partner, it happened during the relationship, but it was actually when I left that I had the strength to go to my police officer and say, look, he's putting very thinly veiled threats on social media using the words he used to say to me, you know, I'm going to show everybody what you're really like. And I went to my police officer in a panic. I said, like, he's got these images. I know he's got them and he's threatening to share them. And he went, oh, well, come back when he does. And I said, but you've seen those images. I said, you know, like I think it took the police 5 or 6 hours to download all of the data from his mobile phone. And I was like, you know, I don't know where they'll end up. If he shares them on the internet now I've left, like, how will I know where they are? You know, I don't want my teenage son in a few years, like, coming across them on a porn site and being like, that's my mum. Oh, great, you know. And so it really resounded with me. And when Refuge, which is the biggest charity for women and children against domestic abuse in the UK, when they were discussing with me, because I've been a spokesperson for them for about 2 years now,
Yeah.
when they just we discussed it was like completely as a fluke on the phone talking about something else. I think I just got over COVID, and I was sat in bed and we were catching up, and I mentioned to the policy manager, she said about threats to share, and I said, oh, I remember that happened to me. And we all sort of went, oh, this is an opportunity. So I got in touch with my local MP, and she was absolutely amazing. And she used to be, her name's Ruth Edwards, she used to be the head of cybersecurity at BT. So it was something that was quite passionate to her because she had that internet knowledge. And she arranged for me to speak to Alex Chalk, who's the Under Secretary of State for the Department of Justice, and Vicky Atkins of the Home Office. And they listened to my story and they heard me. Refuge set up a campaign where you could send an email through Refuge's website, and that went straight to Alex Chalk and Vicky Atkins' inbox. They probably loved us because they got just under 45,000 emails. I think that might have influenced them a little bit. And I did everything from my own BBC Radio 4 show to Victoria Derbyshire. I did GQ magazine. I'm in GQ again this month. Absolutely amazing piece for men. Written by a man. He's put so much effort into it. George Chesterton is an amazing journalist, and it's written for men, for the perception of men. So I think it's something that's gone out there. It's got Tom Holland on the cover. It's you know, something that's really great to read, and it puts domestic abuse as a whole in a perspective. As for the Naked Threat, you know, we had Zara McDermott from Love Island involved, Olivia Colman, she got involved, which was just fantastic. Baroness Nikki Morgan in the House of Lords was our first supporter, which then went on to around 90 peers, I think, supported the amendment. And, you know, we just had so much support from the public, from journalists, but there was a fine line of people who didn't understand it, and they didn't see the point in it. Threats to share intimate images are actually illegal in Scotland already, and New South Wales, in Australia. And even so, a lot of people thought it was wasted time and wasted money to add those 17 words of legislation to the law. So yeah, there was a big majority that was supportive, but there were a smaller number that weren't.
And do you think they weren't supportive because they didn't understand it, or they were just against it?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I have a different perspective, but in my mind, the only time you'd be against a law like that is if you were likely to do it. I don't understand. It wouldn't
Yeah.
affect you. Surely it wouldn't affect you. I once had a lady who was a headmistress of a private school, or an ex-headmistress of a private school, attack me on Twitter, telling me I was a liar and I was an attention seeker, and no decent woman would share her intimate details. It's not raising awareness. It's, and that really stung coming from a woman, because
Mm.
in reality, with no offence implied, you expect it from men. And I did get
Yeah.
men. I got the tweets that said we shouldn't have sent them then, love. Or of which I replied, I bet you're fun at parties, Brian. And then he blocked me. That was a shame. And I just had the sort of hardline people going, well, don't share your pictures then. But if men are
And
asking for them.
no, I was going to touch on that. Yeah. So can we talk
Yeah.
about it? Because that's what
Yeah.
everyone says.
Yeah.
So when I was
Uh-huh.
thinking of this, that I'll be honest, I have my hands up and it's going to make me look bad, but it's the truth. Even I thought, why would you send them in the first place?
Yeah.
So
And it
could you
doesn't
please
make you look
educate
bad.
me?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I guess it's that whole difference of backgrounds thing. It's like, where when I was growing up, that mobile phones not so much. I'm 32, and we got to a teen years, and people were taking pictures and stuff, and I never sent anything like that. But I met my ex-partner at 17. I was still a kid, let's face it.
Yeah.
He was 14 years older than me. He was a grown man. I mean, immediately you go, why is he interested in a 17-year-old girl who looks 12? I used to get ID'd for 12 films.
Okay.
So that just tells you how young I looked. I have a picture that I should put up at some point of me holding my daughter at 21, and I look like a teenage mum. I look like a 13-year-old. Honestly, I look so young. People look and go,
Yeah.
And once though, he expected those pictures. He wanted those pictures. He expected them. He asked for them. It was almost implied, the pressure was there. Some of the pictures he took himself. People assume that women are sending those photos, and at times it's not the case. It's the partner that's taken them and then has them. I mean, he was sharing them with women on the internet to try and invite them into our relationship. He would pose as a woman on dating sites, and he'd sit there all night sending half naked or naked photos of me to these random women who, let's face it, were probably men doing what he's doing. And it felt like my life had completely gone out of control.
Yeah.
And at the beginning part, it was to please him. It was to keep him happy. I mean, let's face it, when you first meet somebody, that buzz is there. You want to do things for them. You want to, and it's very easy to say, oh yeah, why would you send images like that? But I guess it's now an accepted thing. With the digital age, it's easily done. And I think we don't realize the impact of holding somebody's images like that. You're holding their dignity in your phone. They're not your possession. They might be yours to look at, but they're not yours to do with what you like. And I think a lot of guys have got the mindset that once you've sent them, that's your problem. And it's kind of like, how would you feel if I sent a naked picture of you to all of your teammates on your football team, or everyone in your office? Guys are a lot more sort of shameless, I guess, than women.
Yeah.
Women have been sort of conditioned over the years that we have to have dignity, piety, we need to be good women, we stay at home and we look after our husband, and that whole thing of touching upon, like, in the 60s and 70s, even more recently, there are still people that hold it that women don't enjoy sex. Women have sex to please their husband has sex. It's the same thing as if a guy sleeps with 10 women, he's a stud. If a girl sleeps with 10 men, she's a slug. She's a slapper, she's a slut, she's a whore, and it's double standards. So
it is. Because
I
was going to add to that. So I don't know if you remember the case in Northern Ireland where that woman was having a mental breakdown and security took photos of her naked, and it was shared around the whole of Northern Ireland. But Chris Evans from the Avengers had a dick pic leaked, and on Twitter it was being celebrated. And you just see the two opposites.
People are like, oh yeah, let's have a look at that. And you're like, what? Like, it's that whole thing of like, it gets to me when, if you see a half naked woman and a guy shares it on Facebook, and I've seen this, my girlfriends will be like, seriously, really, you want to share this? What's wrong with you? And it'd have like, oh, I'd cover in, I don't know, Marmite and lick it off or whatever. And you know, and women are like, you are vile, objectifying women. And the next minute they're sharing a guy in jeans and a Stetson with a six-pack, and it's like, he can come and like work at my ranch anytime, or he can rope me in. And I'm like, hang on, wait, what? Like, that's double standards. We cannot objectify men in that way, because then it's like equality. The word equality, it's equal. I don't want to be paid more than men. I don't want to be paid more than you. I'd like to be paid the same as you. If we do the same job, I'd like to be paid the same as you. I think that's totally fair. But there are unfortunately people out there that are like, well, men have been paid more than us for years, we should be paid more than them. And I'm like, no, this is going astray. This is, you know?
No, that's a good point. So with the whole threatening, when you were being threatened and stuff, when it was first happening, did it still feel like love? Did it feel like, oh, he's not doing this to hurt me, he's doing this because he loves me?
I mean, the very first incident, I wanted to walk about 10 minutes to a train station to meet my mum, because he'd moved me 30 miles away from my friends and family. I couldn't drive or anything. And I said to him, I'm going to meet Mum. And he said, no, you're not. And I went, yeah, I am. You know, this was about 6 months in. I'm like, yeah. And he turned his phone around and there was a naked picture of me. And he said, if you don't do what I'm telling you, I will send this to your parents and show them what a little slut you are. And I've said this so many times, it sounds like I'm parroting it, but it was like a bucket of ice cold water went, and I thought, you wouldn't do that. And the thing is with abuse is that it goes around in that cycle. So at that moment, I realized that was wrong, that I didn't like that was out of my window of tolerance, and I was uncomfortable with that. But what happened next when I didn't go, because obviously I was mortified, after my mum had been, whilst my mum was there, he was the perfect boyfriend. He was, let me get you, I'll make sandwiches, I'll make this, I'll make that. When he left, oh, I love you so much, you're so beautiful, you're the only woman in the world for me, blah, 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 blah. And it goes around in that cycle. So it goes out of the window of tolerance, they pull you back in there because they love you, they'll look after you. And so at that moment, no, it didn't feel like love. But then afterwards, he convinced me that he loved me.
Yeah.
And I think in a way it was easier for me to accept that was a mishap, that everybody has glitches, you know, than it was to confront the fact that I was already being extorted.
Right. No. And so with the threats, I'm explicitly talking about the photos.
Yeah.
Let's say someone's going through that right now.
Yeah.
What would you say is the first thing that they should do if someone has threatened them? Because the first thing I would do would be panic. I think everyone would just be like,
right. So in all honesty, if anybody sees your photos, hold your head up. You're beautiful. Don't worry about it. Secondly, at the end of the day now, gather evidence. You know, screenshots, get what you can, and approach the police, because actually threats to share could already be prosecuted under the Coercive Control Act. It's just that the police haven't been given the training or the information. They're not at fault for that. You know, at the end of the day, can you imagine being a police officer, the amount that they have to cope with, all the different laws in the scope of the UK? I don't blame the police for that at all, for not being given the tools. But you know, it can already be prosecuted. The next thing you need to do is stay away from that person. No one who respects you or loves you, or even if it was a casual, you sent a photo to somebody casually, you're not in a relationship with them, they don't have any respect for you. They're not worried if you're humiliated, even if it's an empty threat. So I have a 21-year-old sister, and when I spoke to her about this, she spoke to her friends, and she said, you know, so many of her friends have been chatting back and forth to a guy, sent a couple of pictures, and then when they've got a bit like, wow, this is going a bit like too much or whatever, the guy's then gone, well, I want another picture of you, and if you don't, I'm going to share this in the group chat, or I'll put it on Twitter, and the girl has 9 times out of 10 gone, do one. You're not having, you know, and they've not done anything. But even an empty threat, the fact of a threat is you don't know that.
So why do guys do it, do you think?
Why do they do it?
Because it's clearly a powerful threat, isn't it?
Yeah, in all honesty, without sounding like a raging feminist.
No.
I think it's that, I think it's that whole concept of still embedded in our society that men, that sort of patriarchal system, so the word is overused nowadays, the whole patriarchy thing, but I think it really is that men think that a woman is below them. There are so many comments where men say things. Recently, this is a great example, got an email recently from the school that my kids attend. It started off by the head teacher saying that he hoped that the storks that were circling the building would stop getting all his female teachers pregnant again. And I was like, and I texted my friend and I went, sorry, am I being like feminist? And she was like, no, I've actually just sent an email going, dude, no. Would you say that? Do you say that when the male teacher's leaving? There's just as many men teachers leaving just because I feel like it. But there's no comment on that. It's just, oh, well, the women are getting knocked up again. Oh my God, them and babies. They're creating the future. God damn them. So it's like, it is that attitude of like, where a woman gets a job and it's kind of like, is she of an age where she's going to have kids soon? Because that's going to cost us maternity pay. And it's like, that's not fair. It's just as unfair that, I mean, now obviously men can take an equal amount of paternity leave, and rightly so, because my husband's a fantastic dad. When I had my son, I think about 3 nights after I had him, I woke up in the morning, I was like, he slept through the night. And my husband was like, no, I got up with him and fed him, he was fine. And I was like, sorry. And I've got 2 older kids and with my ex, and he never laid a hand on them. Like, he didn't even hold my middle son for a week after he was born. Nothing. Just, oh, right, okay. And it was like really overwhelming to me to meet decent guys. And I know that there are more decent guys out there than there are shitty ones. But I think even decent guys in the heat of the moment can be like, I can throw that out there. There's no repercussion. What they're going to do? Do you know what I mean? What are you going to do? I'm going to threaten it. And then if anything happens, I go, well, I didn't do anything. I didn't mean it. And there's no legal recourse. Whereas in a couple of weeks, there will be a legal recourse.
That's great.
And what women need to do is they need to report that. Because at the end of the day, we need the statistics to prove it's happening, to push for better responses to it.
Definitely. So what can we do as men to help?
I think it's just respect women. I think it's don't automatically think if a woman's fighting for her rights that she's against men. Like, for me, it's International Women's Day today, and it's 3 years ago today that I was cross-examined for 5.5 hours in a court, with pictures of me, intimate pictures of me shown to the jury as far as I'm aware, and intimate texts read out, and questions, and I even had it implied that because I was naked in bed it was okay for me to be raped, and that came from a defence barrister. So he was like, you were naked in bed though, weren't you, Mrs. Saunders? And I was like, yes, because I wasn't allowed to wear clothes. And he was like, would that give the implication of intercourse? And I was like, are you saying that was an indication that I could be raped? I'm really confused. Like,
so being in the shower naked.
That was the sort of thing that I was like, God forbid you leave your door unlocked, because if you come in and somebody comes in and you're naked, they can rape you. It's not illegal. And it was just, even the judge, I mean, the judge was female and she rebuked him, but I gave evidence on International Women's Day, and I remember walking into that court knowing that it was a day of the year that was for women. To remember the battles that they have had. I mean, my 11-year-old daughter this morning was absolutely buzzing because her teacher was talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and she found out that she was born on her birthday, which is next Monday. And she was like, Mum, the woman on your t-shirt, because I've got a t-shirt that says women belong everywhere, that decisions are being made. And she was like, the woman on your t-shirt, she was born on my birthday, and I've Googled her and she's awesome. And, and I feel like today is a great day. I'm not eclipsing men, but men haven't had to fight for equality for a long, long time. And what men can do is remember that we just want to be equal. Of course, there are going to be extreme elements. There are extreme elements in any society. Again, that's like saying that any Asian community is terrorism. It's all terrorism. Anybody, absolutely. If you're a Muslim, you're a terrorist. I mean, you might be a terrorist if you're a Sikh, because they probably can't tell the difference anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's a very, can't do that. It's disgusting. It's deplorable. It's not fair. And it's the same with women. You can't, a lot of people do the, well, it's probably a false cry of rape anyway. It's your word against his. That's so insulting. That's probably, like we were saying about the most insulting things, that's probably one of them, is when people bring up that like 5% or whatever it is of rape statistics. And I'm like, what I went through in 3 years of police investigation, what I went through that day in court, I class myself as a very strong person.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how you would do that if you weren't fighting for the right outcome. I can't imagine being filled with such, I don't even know what it is. Is it hatred? Is it to make a false allegation and ruin someone's life? If I could have just upped and left with my children and rebuilt my life, or asked him to leave our house and move somewhere smaller so I could stay in my home with my children. I know now, if I walked into the kitchen now and went, Ben, I don't want to be with you anymore, it's not working, you know, and we had a talk, obviously it wouldn't be over that quickly. I know without a doubt he'd be like, well, I'm going to look for somewhere else to live. I know he'd support the children. I know he would, because he's a real man.
Yeah.
And all men need to do is that old sort of saying of treat women how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
As a man, treat a woman as you would want her to treat you. I think that's it's a simple thing to remember, really, isn't it? It's like, you know, don't exploit them, and if they exploit you, do the same thing. They've got no respect for you, move on.
No, I think that's brilliant. I will definitely apply that. But I want to actually continue on something. So you mentioned that when you were in court, your photos were being shown, the texts were being shown, and you also got accusations that maybe you're lying. And the fact that
oh no, multiple times he looked at me and he went, but you're lying, aren't you? And I was like,
exactly. So my thing is, do you think that a lot of women are going through what you're going through but are too afraid to come out, and can you blame them for not? If that's everything someone has to go through, I can imagine people being like,
I've had somebody message me in the past 48 hours. I'm not going to disclose who she is. She's been moved to another city. Now I've met her once and we stayed in touch on Facebook because she had a little business that I supported, and she sent me a message whenever it was, and she said, can I just say, and it was a text first, can I just say thank you so much for everything that you do. Your past week has kept me seeing your event of the past week, so you know, the law change and all those things of the past week have kept me going. I'm currently in this city because this was me 3 days ago. And she sent me 9 photos. It looked like she'd been in a car crash. Her ear was smashed up, her face was done in, her eye socket, her nose was bloodied, he'd broken the fingers on her hands. And she said to me, I'm not strong enough to prosecute, but they got him on CCTV and the police are doing it anyway, which is amazing. And I said to her, it's not that you're not strong enough. Something that really makes me mad is the whole, when we go, strong women, let's empower strong women, may we be them, may we know them, and all this, like, strong woman, what's that? I'm not always a strong woman. I've collapsed in tears in the arms of my husband more times than I can tell you. I have sat down at the end of the day and gone, fuck this shit, I'm not doing it anymore. I've had the phone in my hand during that police investigation to pull out because I couldn't have another phone call at the dinner table going, hi Natasha, yeah, it's PC, blah blah blah. You know when he raped you the night that you had your second son and ripped your stitches open, did you go to a midwife? No. Right, okay, all right, thanks, bye. And you're sat there and you're like, and this went on for 3 years. 3 years. I don't think it's down to strength. It's not that simple. I don't blame women with the police response. I do not blame women for not wanting to come forward. I phoned my police officer, who I would like to say was an exemplary human. Okay, he had a breakdown during my police investigation, and he still came back. He attended court with a temperature of like 38, 39, because he had flu. The flu went through the whole of my witnesses, like everybody. It half killed my friend. She had to go there in a taxi to get there and give evidence and go home. I've never been so proud of her. And I remember him phoning him and saying, look, my ex has joined Facebook. He wasn't on Facebook. He's added all the people from my magazine. He's sending them all messages. He's asking what I'm doing, where I am. He's texted my mum. He's texted my sister. He's on bail with no direct or indirect contact, which means he can't go to other people and message me or try and get information on me. And he came back and went, for God's sake, Natasha, you two are about the pettiest humans I think I've ever had to deal with. You cannot keep phoning me and telling me that he's doing this. If he phones you, let me know. And I was like, oh. He then followed me on Twitter. So I phoned the message, follow me on Twitter, surely that's no. And this went on for 3 years, over and over and over again. No woman should have to put, for 3 years, my life floated. Everything hung on getting to that point.
Yeah.
And all everybody could say to me going into that court was, if he's found not guilty, bearing in mind that it was like 7% of rape cases actually ended in prosecution at that point, or something ridiculous. And everybody just kept going to me, remember, if he's found not guilty, it's not that they don't believe you, they just couldn't prove it beyond reasonable doubt, which I had got into my mindset and I did understand. But looking back, what? I had a friend, she's become my friend, she got in contact with me through Instagram. She's going through a rape trial now, but Greater Manchester Police threw it out the first time and said there was no evidence. Do you know why? Because they didn't log the evidence. When she went back and said, I want a review, and a different officer looked at it, it went straight to the CPS and it has now been listed for a trial. That rapist could have got off. And the issue here is that it will be a rapist walking the streets.
Yeah.
That's scary. That's really scary.
Certainly. No, definitely. So one thing I was reading into was that under 18s, if they have explicit photos of themselves on their phone, it's illegal.
Oh.
I don't know.
I don't know. I honestly don't know about that. Okay.
Okay, I was talking to someone about this.
You found something that I don't know. I don't admit that very often. So.
So I was talking to someone very special, and they were telling me this, and then they said that to have it on your phone is illegal. So then for them to share it, means that they're the ones that will be prosecuted. So
right.
That is so the fact that you don't know, the fact that you've only just learned that fact, I think there's no point.
But that's really, really interesting though, isn't it? And again, I campaigned for it. I've just campaigned for a law change and I don't know that. You've just taught me that. That's huge. It's immense. Again, this is how we learn. We exchange information and we show other people and other people go, oh, I didn't know that. And I think that's huge. I think it's really important.
Definitely. Because when I worked in a school, there was a girl that she shared a photo with the guy she was seeing. The guy, typical, well, I shouldn't say typical boys would be boys, but unfortunately he did a very bad thing. He shared it to all the guys in school. She was the one that was in trouble. And potentially what would have happened to her, from what I heard, was the police had to be involved because there was supposedly, I don't think there was, but there supposedly could have been a criminal record for her. And she was the one that could have been excluded, not him for sharing it.
That's absolutely shocking, isn't it?
And let's be honest, it's never, I've not heard yet, I'm not denying it doesn't happen to men, but I've not heard yet a guy being threatened or a guy's nudes being sent around.
I have spoken to one guy who has had it happen. He thinks it's hilarious. She was like, oh, I'm going to share your dick pic. He said, I was like, go ahead, love. And she like shared it to her friends. And he was like, you've got my address. I'm around here when you're ready, which did make me laugh. But also it's like, but that's how it is for a guy. You know, at the end of the day, you don't say, let's be fair, okay? Let's be like on the level here. I mean, it sounds like you have never sent any intimate images and good for you. But obviously I am a bit of a whore, who knows? But, okay? Because my husband has loads. I'm not even going to go there. But the point is, you don't send an unflattering intimate do you? You don't. No. You're not gonna, I'm not gonna take a picture of myself with my top off showing all my Michelin Man belly. I'm not gonna do that. That detracts from the photo. Let's be fair, okay? I'm not going to take a picture of my ass stood up straight so you can see all the dimples where I've put on 3 stone in the past 3 years. No, I'm going to Instagram, bend my leg and take a good picture and dislocate my arm to get it out there. So at the end of the day, for a guy, he's not going to take an unflattering image of his dick, is he? He's not going to be like, oh, that angle makes it look this big like it is in real life. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lean out a bit, add a filter, and now it's a foot long. It is that whole so for a guy, he's like, yeah, it's all right. They think I've got a sausage dog in my pants. It's like, sorry. So I've completely ruined this conversation. But, it's true. And so, like you said, for guys, you don't hear about it because, I'm not saying there aren't guys who feel violated by this.
No.
There are. And they can reach out now. They will be covered by this. It's not a gendered law. And so, same advice to men. If that's happening to you, deal with it. If you're being coerced or controlled, you are just as valid. You are just as valid. In fact, you need to speak out more because there's this huge disparity in the figures between men and women who are abused. But my worry is, as much as there are women who aren't coming forward, which again will raise their numbers, there are so many men who don't speak out. And that's because it's man up. Man up. Worse, I said it to my son last night. I was washing his hair in the bath, he's 4, and he was like, I'm gonna die. And I was like, man up, mate, you'll be fine. And I was like, don't say that. It's not helpful. It's just not a helpful word. And I think it's because we, as a society, we're sort of like, well, people are like, oh, well, she's smaller than you. How's she hitting you? How's she bullying you? And I've had people, I've had lots of men disclose to me abuse just in the street, because I tell everybody I meet what I do, why I do it, The other day I had an old man in the local Wigmore shop who told me that when he asked me what I did, got really like, how do you do that? Who do you know? Blah, blah, blah. Turns out he's a very, very famous ex-judge, I think, or something. Anyway, he was telling me when he was a child, he was, probably in his 70s, if not 80s. He said when he was a child, his dad used to beat his mum. And he said he phoned the police as a boy. And he said, you need to come and help. My dad's hitting my mum. And they said, I'm sorry, young man, we don't get involved in domestic incidents. Yeah. And so he said, I turned around and I said, well, that's lovely. So if you could send a police car in 10 minutes to collect her corpse, that would be wonderful. And he said they came around within 10 minutes. He said, but because his dad was a professor and his dad's sister was an underwriter for a bank, they were like, well, they're a very nice family. At the end of the day, your mum's probably being hysterical. And he said, luckily, in the end we left and everything. He said, but I will never forget that. And he went, I will never, ever, it's never left me. And he was like, it's so great to hear that you're doing the things that you're doing. Sorry, I'm being put off by my ragdoll eating my flowers. No,
you're good. We want to hear the American accent anyway.
No, it's not that cat. I don't know what that cat is, but this is Luna Purgood. It's another Harry Potter name, but she is Luna. Hey.
So no, here's a question I've got to ask. So obviously with your attitude and everything, it's just so inspiring. What would you say to someone who has gone through it, like how they should see life, like not how they should see life, but how they should try and deal with it?
Yeah. So as I said to you, I want to start doing sort of videos on this on my Instagram. I used to be really, despite all the TV stuff and that I've done, I used to be really self-conscious about filming myself. I guess Zoom and that over the past year has helped, but I now do it. And I put a video on yesterday for International Women's Day, which was raising awareness that over 100 women a year are killed at the hands of a current or ex-partner. If you think about that in the context of if 100 people were killed in a terror attack anywhere in the UK, the response would be, how did it happen? Why did it happen? We will never let it happen again. Support for the survivors. Yet every single year we're having over 100. Jess Phillips will be reading out their names in the House of Commons today. Every single one of them. And there are a hell of a lot more than 100 this year because of lockdown. Yes. All I can say to a woman still in a situation, there is more to life. I used to live every single day to go to bed. I would get up, and from the time I got up in the morning, I'd be like, is it bedtime yet? Is it bedtime yet? For that small amount of time after he'd gone to sleep, whether he'd raped me or he hadn't that night, I would lay there awake just thinking, how did this happen to my life? I had so many aspirations. I had so many things I wanted to do. I mean, I wouldn't change having my children, but I didn't want children. I certainly didn't want children at like 20, you know. And it was, I had so many things I wanted to achieve, and I felt hard done by. I felt stripped of that. I felt like it wasn't fair. So all I would say to the women still there is that, you know what, there is more to life. The hardest step is the first one, but it is the first step to the rest of your life. And there is absolutely nothing more valuable than your life. Absolutely nothing more. To women who have left, I would say that, or men that have left, or anybody struggling really, is that perspective is everything. A lot of people are haunted by their past. There is a reason that the rearview mirror is smaller than the windscreen, because you should be looking forward. You should not be looking back.
I like that.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite ones. Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones. It hits people quite hard. It's really important. There is no point me dwelling on what happened to me. There is no point me attaching any emotion. I feel no emotion whatsoever to my ex-husband, apart from when I heard that he couldn't appear at the adoption hearing because he had COVID. I mean, I did go, fingers crossed, save some money, but that's awful. But you know, it is that whole, you know, I won't, he owned so much of my time, so much of my emotion, so much of my feelings, hurt, you know, anguish, humiliation. Why should anybody own those? You've given them enough of your time. We are never told as victims that what happened wasn't our fault. Good humans do not go around destroying other humans.
Yeah.
You're not a bad person. You know, other people's actions, you can't control them. You cannot control other people's actions, and you should not try to. You should not try to influence them. You can guide people if they ask for it, but you should never try and force them. And you have to let go of things that weigh you down. So for me, I could sit here and go, I was raped for 8 years. I was bullied. I lost 8 years of my life. I lost, you know, a career. I lost all the things that I wanted. You know, I don't own my home. I live in a beautiful, beautiful, big farmhouse now, but we don't own it. We rent it because my husband and I met at 25. I had 2 kids in tow. I had absolutely no financial stability whatsoever. I mean, luckily he's got a good job, but the point is that I've been set back 8 years. You know, we would potentially own here if Ben and I had met at 19 when we both met our other part. Oh, well, I met him at 17 and Ben met his ex-wife at 19. But you know what I mean? There was that, you know. And so what I'd say is you can't hold on to that. I do have days. It was more in the 3 years before the trial where I'd sit there and go, I wish I never met him.
Yeah.
I wish. Wishes do nothing. You know, one of my other favorite sayings, I love a cliche, I'm dreadful, but it's the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
People have short-term memory. I get people going, well, you're so lucky to live where you live. God, aren't you lucky? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I left with 2 carrier bags and 2 children 6 years ago. You're right. I know nothing of struggle. I'm sorry. But I've also learned that what others think of you is none of our business.
Yeah,
I don't care what people think. I used to worry on the internet. I used to be like, oh my God, how do I appear? Have I got a spot here? Have I got crow's feet? I used to be, if you look at my Instagram, I used to be skeletally thin. Now, I didn't have an eating disorder or anything, but I was so stressed and so ill that I was a size 4 if I was lucky. And I'm now a size 10. I feel amazing. Yeah, I've got some rolls. I also grew boobs, which was the most exciting thing of when I turned 30. It was like I hit puberty suddenly. I woke up one day, I was like, I have breasts. They're beautiful. Look at them. I still thrust them at people now. I'm like, have you seen them? Look sideways. Have a look. You know, but it's like, I feel great for putting on the weight. A lot of people were like, oh, how do you feel? And I'm like trying to haul up my size 4 jeans, cutting off the circulation to my legs. They were like those deep vein thrombosis socks you get on a long haul flight. It was, I was like, whoa, but I used to be like, I've got weight on, oh God. And then I'd be like, oh, does this fit? And I mean, don't get me wrong, I still want to look good, and I still want to sound good, and I don't want to offend people. It's really important to me to consider other people's feelings. Like, I don't think I can ever be hardline. I always want to be reasonable, but I've also grown into a person that looks in the mirror and is comfortable with who I am. And everybody can do that. Everybody can do that. It's the most liberating feeling to look at yourself in the mirror and go, do you know what? I'm not where I want to be, but I'm right where I need to be right now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I did completely, honestly. Yeah.
And you have to take, people have lost, I mean, I think COVID and lockdowns really put it into perspective for a lot of people, but I think we also have to appreciate those small things. Yeah. Like, I appreciate nothing more than curling up on the sofa with a blanket, a cat, and my Kindle, and reading a historical book, because I'm a weirdo nerd. I'm like a closet Tudor nutter. But yeah, it's or simple things like going out and see my horses, wrapping my arms around my horses' necks and knowing that I'm not going to lose them. Somebody's not going to hurt them to spite me. Somebody, and there are beautiful things every day. Do you know, some days I take pleasure in just having my coffee and sitting in silence. And we all need to do that, because we underestimate the influence on our mental health of letting things wash over us. We go, I'm not going to get pleasure in a coffee. We need to reset, especially after anything that's stressful or traumatic. Doing anything like speaking about things that are traumatic to you, when you come away, I feel it's really important to break the cycle by having a coffee with your friend or your partner, eating some chocolate that you enjoy. You have to restart your head with something positive, something that brings you, doesn't have to be like, oh my God, this is great, but just something that in your head you connect with happiness. And what it happens is, it's like have you heard of the cupboard theory?
No.
Okay, so I'm doing this with my little boy at the moment. So I've just taken on a role as volunteer coordinator and potentially project manager for Shropshire Domestic Abuse. So I'm going to be managing their volunteers and helping them grow and overseeing their sort of services and helping with some input and stuff. And so I've been doing some training with them. And one of the theories is the cupboard theory. So when we go through things that are traumatic, we tend to throw them all in the cupboard in our head and try and ram the doors closed. And eventually those doors open. What we can do, and what I'm doing with my son, because we're going through the adoption. So my husband is adopting the 2 children. So my ex-husband will have no PR. And in the course of that adoption, obviously my 11-year-old daughter was aware because she remembers, but my middle son didn't. So having to tell him that his dad, even though we hadn't reinforced it was his dad, because we've got a younger son who is Ben's biological son, he'd grown up alongside Henry with us going, dad, 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 dad. And they've always called him dad. From about 3 months in, they've been like, can we call you dad? He was the first father figure they ever had. My ex didn't bathe them, clothe them, feed them, nothing at all. They weren't even allowed in the lounge in case they messed it up. And so as part of the adoption, he had to be told, and it broke him. Utterly, he'd be waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, sobbing. I want my dad to be my dad. I don't understand. Why do I need a piece of paper? And so we've started to do the cupboard theory. So I said to him, what we'll do is, with the questions you have, you can give me a question that's untidy. Think of it as a bunched up towel. We're going to take it out. We're going to talk about it. We're going to smooth out the creases, fold it up neatly. We're going to put it back in the cupboard neatly. Because what happens is when we take out all of those horrible, messed up balls and we fold them up, which is really ironic considering I've got a 3-foot pile of clothes discarded in the corner of my room that I need to hang up in my wardrobe. And that's from the past week with all the TV stuff. I try and appear in something different each time. So I'm like, I'm like, I need an assistant. But yeah, so yeah, and I've said to him, if we take these things out and address them, we can do it ourselves. We can write it down. Writing it down is really good, putting it in front of you, and it's a really healing experience. If we do that, we don't have to do it all at once. Just when we feel ready, eventually we have a neat and tidy cupboard where the doors close. We're not hiding it away. We know it's there, but we have processed it in a way that makes it neat, tidy, and healthy in our head. And it's a really good way of realizing that we need to put those things in order.
Yeah.
Do a bit of housekeeping, mental housekeeping.
No, I love that answer, actually. I think that's very helpful. They're helpful for me as well. I want to move on to the book that you're writing.
Okay.
I want to hear more about that. And I think everyone does, because I think it's a fascinating story you have. And I think a book is an amazing way of getting out.
I want to tell my story because I feel like I've told it a million times along this journey, but I actually haven't. And there are so many things that have never been mentioned, so many positive things as well. Like I had my kids and my pregnancies were absolutely horrendous. I was starved. He'd withhold water from me. And I remember my daughter being put in my arms and stuff and looking down and thinking, I don't know what to do with this. What am I going to do with this? Never held one of those before. Oh, it's crying. But actually, the moment she was put in my arms, I looked at her and went, oh my God, this is mine. Like, I made this. And his first words were, don't just stare at it, shut it up. And then he left the room. Yeah. And actually, my daughter is amazing. She is the most beautiful, amazing, she's just awesome. I mean, she's as mad as a badger and she's got hair like Russell Brand. But she like, for example, we had some, I went to the fridge just before Christmas. I opened the fridge and she'd stuck googly eyes to every single item in the fridge. Every single item.
She's automatically cool now.
Yeah, she was just like, yeah, there we go. I was like, what? And then we had some barbecue sauce that had Skeeters written on it, because obviously you might be able to tell from the name of the cats that we're Harry Potter fans. We've got Draco Meowfoy and Luna Purgood and Dobby. Dobby's a car crash of an animal. He's got a broken tail in 7 places. You've got flares like John Travolta. They like come out. Anyway, I digress. We've got Skeeter's barbecue sauce. Anyway, it's on the table the other night. And I've looked at it and I'm like, and it's got Rita written above it. So it's Rita Skeeter's barbecue sauce. And I'm just like, when did you do this? She was like, about a month ago. I've been waiting for you to notice at every dinner. And that's what she's like. She's, she's a positive. She kept me going. And my son, Thomas, he gave me £1 on Friday night. He put £1 on my leg. And I said, what's that for? That's your pocket money. He said, I want to donate that. He said, I want to donate that to Refuge because I'm so proud of everything you've done this week.
Aww.
And I was like, don't make mummy cry, mummy doesn't cry. Like, whoa. And so they are the positives in my book. And there are other positives, and there are things that inspired me and kept me going. And then there are friends that without them, I wouldn't be here now. I met a woman through Facebook who, she really supported me, egged me on, held me up. I mean, he blocked my phone the day I left him. As soon as he got out of custody, he blocked my phone, reported it stolen. And I was like, oh my God, I've got £2.30 to my name. What am I going to do? I've got 2 kids, I haven't got a phone, if the police need to call me and everything. And she just ordered me exactly the same phone and added it to her contract. It arrived the next morning on the doorstep. She was like, there we go. I was like, shit. And she was like, just pay me back when you've got the money coming in. And without kindness like that, I don't know what I'd do. And so I want to put that in the book. It started off as being a story of my journey. And now it's getting to a point where I kind of want to tell my story, but along the way, I want to show how I kept going and how people can keep going. Like, kindness is a huge thing for me. I saw a boy walking down a 60 road because we live in the middle of nowhere. And I turned around, this was a couple of weeks ago, turned around, pulled up, what are you doing? You all right? Because there's like lorries swerving around him. And he's like, I was at school and I was being bullied and I've walked out. I said, well, are you going to the village where I live? I was like a minute from home. He went, no, I'm going like 25 minutes away. I was like, how are you going to get there? I was like, you're wearing a dark green coat, walking along hedgerows. You're going to walk down the 60 roads to this place. And he was like, I don't know. I went, get in. He was like, what? I was like, get in. So when he got, both of us with our masks on. And I drove him home and I told him what I do and why I do it. Obviously child friendly, because he was only in like year 9. And when he got out the car, he was like, "You are amazing." I mean, I don't take compliments well. I just go, "I like birthday cake" or something, you know, I'm so awkward. And I'm getting better with it. And he was like, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Why did you do this for me? And I said, just because. And he went, do you do things for people just because? I went, yeah. And he was like, huh. And I went, and you can repay me by doing something for somebody just because. I said, whether they ever find out, or, you know, sometimes I like to just go on Amazon and buy my friends a little something and just send it to them and just say, do you know what? I love you. You're awesome. You know, and it's like Tulsi's message this morning. She just messaged me and she told me she loved me and she was proud of me and I inspired her, and that means so much. And I think we should pay it forward. We all, you know, I'm alive. For every week I've been gone, at least two women have been killed. I owe it to every single one of those women to make the most of every day that I'm here.
Yeah.
Every day. And I want to dispel the myths in my book around relationships as well. So like, there's so much pressure on us to be married at a certain age, kids at a certain age, get a good car, have a Labrador, have a house on a new housing estate where you probably have a cash guy that's the same as everybody else's cash guy, but a different colour. And it's like, oh, and a Next account. Don't forget the Next account. That's vital. And I'm like, why? Like, it's not right for everybody. I met my partner 3 months after I left, which is soon, but I'd mentally left my ex years before. Like, I had processed everything. And when I met him, I got off a train and I looked him in the eye and was like, huh, there you are. Like, I'd been looking for him my whole life. It was so weird. And we ended up moving in together 3 months later. I mean, I'd had a minor stroke by that point, so I couldn't feel the right side of my face, which I still can't feel, and my hands are a bit weird. But yeah, we moved in together and I've never looked back. And a lot of people think that they need to leave their abuse situation and have a happy ever after.
Yes.
And some people's happy ever after might not be married with children. It might just be the career they want. Hey, it might just be living. It might be whatever they want. Not everybody can be the Prime Minister. You know, we are also got this culture of you need to be a high achiever to achieve anything.
Yes.
I mean, always get your education, always get everything, don't get me wrong. But also, like, in my concept, I'm now, you know, liaising with the government and stuff like that. And I left school at 14. You can do anything you set your mind to. If you want to do something qualified, then you need to work hard for that. It's not going to be handed to you. But the other side of it needs to be, you know, we need to dispel those myths. People need to live however comfortably they are with that. And it's really important to me to explain to people that I didn't jump into the arms of my husband in the hope of getting married. When we got together, Ben was absolutely against having children. And I said, well, you do realise I've got two, right? I mean, we can put them in a dog cage, but we've got to let them in the house. And he went, that's fine. They're like ready-made kids. That's okay. And within a year, he was like, I think if I don't have a baby with you, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. And I want to sort of cement our family. I don't want to wait 2 years and then it be our children there, 2 children there, 1 child there. I want them to be the 3 kids together. And I fell pregnant within 2 weeks. It was absolutely crazy. It was one of those meant to be things, I think. And a lot of people, and then he proposed to me and we got married. And yeah, it is a fairy tale. It is a fairy tale. I'm very lucky, absolutely blessed. But if he leaves me tomorrow, I will survive.
Yes.
I'd be heartbroken, don't get me wrong. Love him.
That's what I wanted to bring up as well, because I love what you said earlier,
fine.
where you said earlier, which was beautiful, where if you walk into the kitchen and say, I can't be with you anymore, that you have that freedom to walk away. And we're not taught that. We're never emphasized that, which I thought was beautiful.
Absolutely. The respect I have between me and my partner, it's alien to me how some of my friends and their partners operate. I look at them and I'm like, like, we're a team for everything. We're a team.
Yeah.
He is my biggest supporter. He is behind me on everything. I will finish this. I'll walk out to the kitchen. He will get up, wrap his arms around me, ask how it went, tell me I did amazing. He's so proud of me, you know, and I do the same for him. But like I said, if I want to walk away, or he wants to walk away, and people go, I thought you were in love, I thought you want to be together forever. Yeah, I do, but shit changes. One day, one of us might wake up a different person. I don't know that. Life is growth. You know, people are all looking at the end of the journey. That's when you die, okay?
Yeah.
You don't want to be worrying about that. Oh, hang on. Somebody is phoning me.
I will pause. There we are. We're back now.
We're back. Sorry. So I think it's one of those things where you have to have that mutual respect. You need to be supporting each other and supporting each other's growth. So that whole enjoying the journey, you know, not looking at the end goal, enjoy the way. And sometimes people meet, you know, they reach roads and the roads go off in different directions. And I think we're not taught to consider that when we have kids with somebody. We're taught to consider having a child with somebody we're going to be with forever.
Yeah.
Actually, forever is a real long time. A real long time. I am not who I was 6 years ago. I'm not who I was a year ago. I mean, don't get me wrong, my love hasn't changed for my partner, but my point is here that I absolutely worship the ground he walks on. I never believed in the term soulmate until I met him.
Yes.
But you just don't know what the future holds. And my feelings might stay the same, but his may change. We don't know. And I think the pressure that we're made to feel, I think the failure that's put on us. We're failures. We're failures if our relationship goes bad. We're failures if we don't please the people around us. That is not true. Again, what other people think of you, none of your opinion. And, you know, none of your business. And their opinion is irrelevant to you. And that's hard. It's hard when it's people close to you, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
But we have to do what's right. We can't live for other people.
Again, I think you've ended that on a beautiful note. I want to end this interview with one thing, because you've done some beautiful quotes. What's one thing that you can leave the following viewers with that would be empowering?
I think in 3 words: you survive, you rise, and you thrive. They're my 3 words. They're my new 3 words of my rebranding. With my Phoenix, that was drawn by an absolutely talented young girl for me. You survive, you rise, you thrive. And that's what we do. So we survive the things we need to come through. We rise up out of those ashes, and then we thrive. We be the best version we can be, and we make no apologies for that. So
that is it's honestly been so great actually talking to you, and I can assure you I've definitely learned something, and this will hopefully help so many others.
It's been great speaking to you as well. I'm sorry that I just ramble on so much.
No, it's been great. It's just pennies are dropping, which is good. So no, thank you again so much. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.